I'm Elisa from Confetti Cakes, and we're mixing it up in the kitchen today. A long time ago, I made a backpack cake for my niece Ruthie. Ta-da! She loved her little froggy, and I thought it was the cutest thing to make, inspired by her. So now it's the beginning of the school year, so I thought what would be better than to make a mini version. And kids love their backpacks. I don't know what it is. So we have Hello Kitty with a little pocket, and we have some straps, which I'm going to show you how to make, and of course our side pocket. So let's get started. And remember, all the equipment and tools are listed on my blog, confetticakes.com, and I give you everything you'll need there. What you need to build the cake is a foam core board. So what I want to do is I've cut it to 3.5 by 5 inches, depending on the size of your cake. I make it about an inch smaller than what I think the final result will be. But because of the roundness and the doughiness that a school backpack has, I'm going to go ahead, use an X-acto, and round the edges. All right, so I have my board already completed with rounded edges, and what I'm going to do now is just cut it into 4 pieces. So I'm going to just cut down the middle, ta-da! Now we're going to build our cake. And I filled a disposable pastry bag with the buttercream, and now I'm going to continue filling my cake. All right, so I have my cake already built up. I'm gonna stick it in the freezer for about 15-20 minutes. So my cake has been chilled for 20 minutes, and so it's nice and firm to the touch and cool. So for the backpack, what we want is a flat side and a curved side, and basically a nice dome shape. So what I'm going to start to do is just take off some cake, and this is the yummy and good scraps that your family members can be enjoying while you're making this. And so I just take a little bit off, and remember, it's like a haircut. Once the hair is gone, it's gone. So you want to try to go a little bit at a time, okay? You can always take more off. And I try to work in a 365-degree motion, always turning it. So if you can work on a turntable, that's the best thing. Okay, so I have my shape ready to go. And I'm going to start by coating it with some buttercream. So here's my Swiss meringue buttercream. And feel free really to use any recipe you want. You could use ganache, you could use any flavor of buttercream. All right, so we're ready to wrap our cake in fondant. As you can see, this is a quite vertical looking backpack, or owl looking like a mummy. So since it's an unusual shape, I'm actually going to use a tape measure. So that's about 8 inches, 2 pounds of pre-dyed pink fondant, would we say 8? And then I can do it kind of in the shape, even though I know I'm going to cut it again. I'll just cut like a little cylindrical kind of thing. Whee! I'm going to use my scalpel, okay, and I just want to create a nice straight line all the way up my cake. All right, so I've covered the front with the rolled fondant, and so now I'm ready to cover the back, 5.5 and 6.5. So now I'm going to take just a little bit of water. It may stick on its own, but it's just better to have a little extra. And I'm going to line it up at the bottom and just smooth it on to the other piece. And then we're going to go ahead and use the scalpel again to cut away. Now that all the fondant's on, I can use the side of my hand to push in the bottom. Again, I'm pushing in the fondant to that board, so I'm sealing in the cake so that it still tastes nice and moist when you're ready to serve it. And I really want to push under the fondant to make sure that it really has the look like the bag is sitting down. So now I'm going to take my excess fondant, and I'm going to knead it back together and form a little pocket. I think I want it about 5 inches. So again, I'm going to use some water. This is the star of the cake, so you really want it to take up most of the surface area. And then we're going to make one small pocket on the side. So with that, again, I'm going to use some leftover pink fondant, and it's going to be rolled much thinner than the thick pocket. And again, I'm just going to use a little bit of water along the edges. Maybe you even want to make a little teddy bear or some little toy or keys, anything special you could stick in that pocket if you want, even a lollipop. So now some fun stuff, let's stitch. So I want to stitch on either side of this seam where I'm going to put piping. I'm going to stitch all along the pocket here. I'm going to stitch all along the front surface here, and I'll meet you right back here when I'm done. We're ready to get some details on. So I've rolled out some red fondant and I'm using a heart cutter. I'm just going to cut out a little pocket that's going to be at the top of the bag. And now I've taken a regular craft clay gun and I filled it with that same red pre-dyed fondant, and I'm going to just push it out, and it's going to create a perfect round rope that I'm going to use all over the bag to put piping. Right, so I just want the piping around this edge of my front pocket. So I put some water around here. Here we go, all the way around the edge. It could follow the curve of the pocket again, so it shows that motion like it's a real bag. And then here you could create a nice perfect seam, and then I'll just pull them together. Dun, da, da, da. And now, who are we ready for? Miss Kitty. All right, so it's kitty time. So I went ahead, measured this area, and figured out exactly how big I wanted my logo to be. Then I went ahead and cut this out with a pair of scissors. Here she is. And I'm going to use my scalpel and just cut around the outside of Kitty. And then because I want to press the logo into the cake, I'm actually going to put her on right now. I'm not going to put the eyes and everything down here because then when I go to press, it could get all messed up. And again, it'll probably stick on its own, but why not put a little water? And you just want to try and get it as centered as possible. And then just like any good patch, you want to put some stitching. So I'll go as close to the edge as possible without going over. And then for the placement of the eyes, nose, and whiskers, you want to put the template right over your little patch. And what you can do is just put, for the eyes anyway, you can put on the two outside, like at the top and the bottom, but just on the inside so that you know that's where you want to cover it. And the same thing with the nose, just mark it with a toothpick. So I just take a small pastry tip, cut out the nose, and then I just jiggle it back and forth because this is round, but I want it to be rectangular. So we put Kitty's nose right where those two dots are. And it's important to get the few attributes to Hello Kitty right because that's what everyone's going to recognize, right? So if you're doing Mickey Mouse, you have to get his nose right and his eyes. If you're doing Elmo, you better get those eyes right or your favorite 2-year-old or 3-year-old will let you know. Right over those two dots that I made before. And if it's not sticking on its own, you could use some water, though they tend to stick on their own usually. And so let's go ahead and do her whiskers. So for this, I just make some strips. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Just need 6 of them, right? All different sizes. Start on one end and go to the other little dot. And we could trim them up after. Okay, so I have all the whiskers on, and so let's cut out the bow. So I found a pastry tip that's just about the size of the center of the bow. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, just like that. And then I'm going to use the other sides of that and just use my knife to cut kind of like 2 cross triangles. And then from those triangles, I'm going to just pinch them and round the edges and pinch them together just like that. And then you can use this dog bone tool to create an indent in the center. Again, just to give it that Hello Kitty-esque style. kind of figure out where you want the bow to go on the cake. If you weren't sure and you were nervous about this part, you could always trace the template, either with toothpick or with a sharp knife. Okay, and then last but not least, we need some backpack straps to hold it on, and maybe a little hook to put on the top. So I thought it was fun. I was in the grocery store and I found these Air Nerds Extremes, and they come in this rainbow design, which I absolutely love. I thought it was so cute. I've actually never had these before, but they're kind of tasty. So anyway, they already come in strips. So I think 2 strips are perfect for the back. And then I just take one and I cut it a little bit to make the little loop on the top. What I'm going to do is just cross this over like this, just till I get a little loop, and then I'm going to cut it so that it's all in a straight line. And then I'm just going to create a little indent up here, and that's going to help them start to sit. And then what I'm going to do is take some red piping and put that all around. Cute, just like that. So from that same red that I had rolled before, I'm going to put the 2 final straps on. And so for that, I use a smaller heart cutter. So at this point, I would suggest putting the cake on its final resting place. Sounds a little morbid, but after this, you probably aren't going to want to move it that much. And so put your cake on its serving tray or cake plate. And so just lift it up just enough so that they hold on one side. And I put them at a little angle if you notice. So put the patch. Ta-da! Cute. Kind of reminds me of Rainbow Bright. And there you go. There's your Hello Kitty backpack. Thanks so much for mixing it up in my kitchen. And remember, find everything, equipment, recipes, tools on my blog at my website, confetticakes.com.